We will reinvigorate our commitment to fight as hard as we can for the living by making sure Oregon workers are getting the right gear, the right training, and the right precautions to do their job as safely as possible. Sadly, the list of names are longer this year than last. That means we have to keep pushing and working for a safer Oregon so that one day there'll be no names to read and every worker can return safely from work to their homes and families. It is now my honor to introduce the Governor of the State of Oregon, Kate Brown, to read a proclamation.
Good afternoon. As some of us here know all too well, no job is worth the cost of a life. No family can feel stable and secure when they're worried about the safety of their loved ones. I want every worker to return home safely at the end of their shift. We must honor those who've died while trying to earn a living by ensuring a safe workplace for every single Oregonian. The well-being of our workforce is more than just a safety issue. It's essential to the economic health of our entire state. Oregon's economy is turning a corner, with just 5.4% Oregonians unemployed. This is slightly lower than the national average and the state's lowest unemployment in 8 years. But these gains are not worth the cost of a single life. Oregon businesses have been great partners in expanding workforce training and job opportunities so that more Oregon families can thrive. As more workers enter the workforce, employers must remain committed to worker safety and accident prevention. And workers must be willing to stand up and say something when safe working conditions are not maintained. Even with increasing numbers of working Oregonians, fatalities at work have been relatively stable. But stable is not enough. One work-related fatality is one too many. Too many families face an uncertain future. Too many families that we are called on to remember on days like today. Oregon can do better. We can and we must. Whereas every year, tens of thousands of American workers are killed by workplace injuries and occupational disease, and whereas tens of thousands more are permanently disabled and millions are injured, and whereas by organizing Workers' Memorial Day on April 28th, a day chosen by the unions of the AFL-CIO as a day to remember the victims of workplace injuries and disease, renewing efforts to seek stronger safety and health protection, better standards and enforcement, and fair and just compensation, concerned Americans are determined to prevent these tragedies in the future. Now, therefore, I, Kate Brown, Governor of the State of Oregon, hereby proclaim April 28, 2015 to be Workers' Memorial Day in Oregon and encourage all Oregonians to join in its observance. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Brown. Reverend Janet Parker from the First Congregational United Church of Christ in Salem will now deliver the invocation and lead us in a moment of silence for the fallen.
Please bow with me. Source of life and every blessing, we gather together today as people from all faiths and backgrounds with a shared purpose and a common plea. We come to remember the workers in our state who died as a result of workplace injuries and disease this past year, and to call for greater efforts from government and business to protect workers from preventable injuries and death. Today we mourn the loss of good women and men who died on the job because our society as yet fails to adequately protect those who spend their lives in productive labor. God of justice, help all those who work every day to bring about better policies and stronger laws so that no one dies as a result of hazardous or unsafe working conditions. Above all, help us to inspire and carry our society and government forward on this issue, and to prevent any backsliding due to lack of funding or political will. Today, we take the time to remember, so that tomorrow, memorials like this one will be unnecessary. And so now we pause for a moment of silence in honor of those whose names will be read. They are gone from this earth, but never forgotten. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend. Joining us today to read the names of the workers killed on the job and in battle in 2014 is Midge Purcell. She is the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for the Urban League of Portland.
Thank you, Tom. I'm honored to be given this task. Gerald Alexander, Jeremy Barker, Philip Bowman, Alexandra Cambray Barrera, Donald Campbell, Robert Carone, Donald Culver, Emery Connor, Arthur Cook, Brian Dodge, Leslie Evans, Michelle Ferrario, Mark Fortune, Santiago Jerome, Matthew Goodnature, Richard Gray, David Herring, Dennis Huber, Grant Jones, Donald Kendall, Gary Klein, Nicole Laub, Glenn McCoy, Christy McKinney, Harry McNall, Jose Mercado Nuno, Jake Merrill, Bernie Mickey, Scott Miller, David Moore, Ruben Morales Benito, Estela Morgan, James Nisu, Nicholas Orozco, Brian Pearson, Specialist John Pelham, Adam Pennington, Jason Reynolds, Gerardo Rodriguez, Lori Rothrock, Mario Santano, Dan Schrader, Justin Simons, Jerry Smith, William Steinbrook, Stephen Strobe, Stephen Swindler, Toby Vigil, Justin Walker, Grady Waxenfelter, Daniel Williams, Donald Wolcott, and Bradley Yonker. May they rest in peace.
Thank you, Midge. We will now hear from Michael Wood. Michael is the administrator of the Oregon OSHA.
Thank you all for taking the time to be here today. This is, for most of us, an opportunity to stand in solidarity with those who have experienced a loss that none should experience. For most of us, this is an opportunity to remind ourselves about the importance of the work we do, about the importance of the challenge of pursuing true workplace safety and health in Oregon workplaces. I've had the privilege to speak at ceremonies here in Oregon for 10 years. I've had the honor to attend ceremonies like this for more than 2 decades, and I have to tell you that there is a part of me that says I've been to too many. I have certainly heard far too many names read. For some of us here today, that's a personal loss. The loss of loved ones, of family, in some cases the loss of coworkers. And all of us need to remember that it is the personal loss that matters. The reality is that each of those names we read, behind each of them, there is a story. There is a story of a life, and there is a story of dreams. There's a story of a family and friends and loved ones. And there is a story that was cut short by a tragedy in the workplace. I wish I could tell you that we could launch a new program and eliminate all of these workplace deaths in the next year or in the next 2 years. It's not that easy. I wish that I could tell you that these deaths are somehow impossible to avoid and that we've done all we can. But that's not true either, because in far too many cases, the ability to prevent these deaths, while perhaps not easy, is simple. I do not understand why we face the same hazards so often now that we did 2, 3, 4, and 5 decades ago. I do not understand why decades after a comprehensive fall protection standard we have workers fall without fall protection. I do not understand why decades after a comprehensive standard to lock out and tag out machinery to protect workers, we have workers seriously injured and killed working inside that machinery. I do not understand why decades after the passage of a confined space standard, we have workers who die in confined spaces. I do not understand why we continue to face the struggle. I wish I had simple answers. I wish I had an easy plan. All I can offer is my support. In some ways, the reality of loss became more personal for me this year. Less than 2 months ago, I lost my own father. Now, I didn't lose him in a workplace accident. He died at 86, and although we were not ready to see him go, he was ready to go. But I know the level of loss we experienced. I know the level of grief we experienced. And when I think of what he spent working in the woods as a logger, certainly among the hazardous occupations, when I think about the reality that we could have lost him in spite of his best efforts, when I think about the reality that he might not have known his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren and even all of his children, I cannot fathom the loss you face, but I know it is immense. And as we stand here at this ceremony where we hear behind me noises of traffic, and we hear across the mall cheers and celebration, in some sense it seems odd, a dissonance. But in another sense, it's the reality of grief and the reality of life that goes on after loss. We must pick up the pieces and continue. For those of us who work to prevent injury and illness in the workplace, what that means is we must accept a new challenge. And I pledge to you, all of you, that I will do more, that I will fight harder, that I will push harder to see workplaces in this state safer and to see fewer names and fewer names on that list year after year. And I invite you, all of you, to join me in that fight, however you can. Because if we're truly going to stand with those who have lost loved ones and who are with us here today, if we are truly going to stand with them, we must say that it will be different in the future. We must say that we will do better. In the words of Mother Jones, which are sometimes softened for sensitivity but seem appropriate to the occasion for me, we will stand with those who remember. We will mourn the dead, but we will fight like hell for the living. That's the challenge we face. Please join me.
Thank you, Michael. I hope one day soon we'll have no names to read. Until then, we remain committed to the safety of every worker. We must continue our work because everyone deserves to have safety on the job and protection on the job. Anything less is unacceptable. I want to thank you all for attending today, and the ceremony is concluded. Thank you.